Are we live? Are we live?
Are we?
Are we live?
Yes,
Are
we're
we
live.
live?
Do you know I miss you
MathPig,
doing
how's
that?
your prolapse anus coming along?
I do miss you doing that. It is good to see you, good to have you back, Amber.
Have you been to the doctor to get that prolapse anus checked out yet?
I did get it checked out. They just sort of put some super glue on it and staples. We went
Okay,
that
that's
way.
going to hold the prolapse anus in.
And the doctor said no more fisting, right?
Just not by you. Your hands are too big, Sammy.
I know, I'm
Little
sorry.
tiny hands. We need little tiny hands. that
It's
cupcake.
good to know you finally got your prolapse anus taken care of.
Thank you everybody for that. Thanks everybody for coming in tonight. Who have we got? We've got Spooky and Sandy and Ox and even Rab's here. No, I'm not muted, Rab. Thanks yeah, I don't know what we're doing. We were just slobbering shite about movies in the background. One of my favoriteest time travel movies ever would be Primer. Something I don't think a lot of people know of, and it was the physicist in Tapioca Weasel, I think, or whatever. But yeah, it was good to meet someone who'd seen the movie as well. If anybody here in the audience has seen Primer, two guys, they build a time machine in their garage. They rent a storage locker. I don't want to say any more in case I spoil it, but that should be enough to trigger anyone who's remembered it. It even worked on Amber, and we all know what their fucking memory's like. So, Mr. Weasel, would you like to give some points on Primer, some things on it that you thought were... Would you disagree that it's one of the best time travel movies ever?
Yes.
No, I would not disagree with that.
We
It's
didn't
the
ask you.
movie
You get it.
that it is the movie that I will like cite as my hipster you've probably never heard of it option for what is your favorite movie, because it's like they developed the time travel thing, and it's scientifically like not ruled out, I guess, by physics or something. I don't know, that's probably fake. It doesn't matter. And two, they go hog wild with like, we're gonna deal with how complicated this actually makes stuff. And by the end of it, I have very little idea what's going on, and I've watched it like 7 times.
Yeah.
But I always understand like a little more each time, and it's really satisfying and cool. And like the conclusion, you understand enough that it's like awesome.
Well, that is one of the
Great
things
movie.
about it. You know, you watch, say, for Back to the Future, or these movies, and they sort of ignore the grandfather paradox, or they just go, here, it just creates another universe where it's all okay and shit like that, and they just create a loophole. But as you pointed out with Primer, they go into how fucking goddamn complicated shit gets when there's like 3 versions of your own self, and having to work out where you are relative to your own family and get the car and whose car you're using to get here, while at the same time being at work so nobody notices, but version 2 is off doing stocks to make us money.
To the physicist in the room, I got a question though. When the time machine would go back in time prior to its assembly, would it not disassemble
It didn't.
But should it not?
It never
Because
went
it was
back
never
in time.
assembled.
Okay.
This is the point.
The time machine in Primer, right? The time machine in Primer. I'm going to give a real simple version of it. If you can correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Weasel. They create a box, right? And if you've ever heard of quantum entanglement with 2 things being together at the same time, one's always the opposite of the other. So it's based on that sort of idea. And this box constantly is flipping between A and B. A always being its point of creation. B being the point that you're interacting with it. But A is constantly fluctuates, right? So you get into the box at B, and if you flip it and correct and get right on your timing, you get out of the box at A. And you get out of the box when the box was created. So you can never travel back further in time than when the box was created.
Yes. Which is because that is a thing that I guess has been proven according to some preconceptions of math. I mean, I think all of that is, I don't know. I don't know enough about it to comment.
It's the hypothesized reason, isn't it, that we don't have time travel now? Is that or one of the reasons is that we don't have it because it hasn't been created yet.
Yes.
that we can only ever go back.
I mean, that's also just tautologically
the problem is this. Most people assume that when you do create time travel, what was the first thing you're going to do? Go back in time and tell yourself that you created time travel. But you can't.
Exactly.
You can never come back and tell yourself you did it, so we never know that we're back.
Well, I think there was a new... Was there not a paper?
If you could turn on a machine, right now, a box in your room, turn it on, and then 3 days from now, get in that box, and then wait a while and get out of the box and be right back here.
It was something like 8 hours.
And you carry with you a list of stock tips?
Yeah.
That's the first thing they do. It's not much of a spoiler.
Well, no, you create a time travel, otherwise I'm not going to believe the list I just gave myself. Right?
It's definitely a movie you have to watch more than once.
Yeah, and then a YouTube explanation video,
so
and then another one.
The whole thing with the box with the A and B. This is why in Back to the Future they have a flux capacitor, because it gets you past that can't move the box past its point of creation.
Yes. Well, that's more wormhole transformation of time travel.
Yeah.
You know, I think the flux capacitor creates a wormhole. It doesn't just go boop. I think the actual.
I don't think they bother really explaining it.
No, they don't explain it in any way.
No,
but if I was to put it, if I was to classify that time travel,
Robbie, it's the DeLorean travels forward, hits 88 miles an hour, bang! It's now hopped through time at the same point where it was.
That's
I'm not convinced. I am stoned enough for various different time travel.
Where Terminator, okay, that would be more wormhole time travel, because it doesn't matter where you are. When you go through, you can come out somewhere else. That would be your wormhole idea.
There's no machine there, you know, but there's no machine. Like talking Donnie Darko.
That's because you can't send the machine. The machine has to stay there, and you fall through it.
According to Star Trek, you just shot around the sun and you go back. Easy peasy.
According to Superman, you just fly around the Earth really, really fast in the wrong direction.
Just about to say that, Chicken. Just rewind the world. Like, that has to be the worst. Can we even classify that as time travel? Like what?
What? Like nothing? Like just automatically just stopped and fell over?
Even if it did, even if the Earth did spin back, that's not how this works. That's not how any of this works.
Did people actually believe that when that movie came out?
They didn't. No. Well, okay, some people did. People believe you're gonna find somebody capable of believing like anything.
All right,
but flat Earth is
right. But what I mean is, do you remember when War of the Worlds came out?
There's people out there who still believe the Earth is flat, or the Earth is flat.
Yeah, but what I'm trying to make a correlation to is
Superman can fly around the Earth until it spins backwards. Now that's how time travel works.
But do you know the way that it was mainstream that people believed War of the Worlds when it came out on the radio? Was the education system that low that when they watched it, they believed that this was possible? Or did they watch it and go, that's bullshit, things would just fly off? That's what I'm...
It wasn't presented as a story.
Wait a minute. The War of the Worlds issue there. One, it was not as widespread as you think. It was a localized broadcast.
Yeah.
Most people at the time who were listening weren't, or who could have listened, weren't actually listening to the broadcast.
Okay, nobody cares about the example that I was using?
Not broadcast as a story, but was rather just broadcast in its whole as a broadcast, so people thought it was the news.
Yes,
some people may have thought it was real, but once you go outside and look around, you start to realize it's not.
I used that as an example because it's an extreme stereotypical example, not because it was true and I believe it.
Yeah.
It was just more to give you a direction of where I'm going.
I mean, I would say that the spaghetti trees was more impressive.
The what?
But that was intentional. The spaghetti trees.
The April Fool's jokes of the spaghetti trees in Switzerland. Yeah.
I never heard of this.
I have not heard of this.
BBC
How have you not heard of this? It was massive.
An April Fool's joke, and they literally had a little Swiss village with trees and people picking spaghetti off the trees and frying it, and that's where spaghetti comes from. It's spaghetti trees in Switzerland, and people then would of course write letters in to the BBC, either knowing it's a joke and playing along, or actually believing it.
Because people didn't know where spaghetti came from.
Yeah.
Okay, that's worse than I think it's 30% of Americans thinking chocolate milk comes from brown cows.
Yeah. Well, who here has never heard of the American house hippo?
The what?
Exactly. You've never heard of the American house hippo? Tapioca has. Would you please?
I haven't actually.
Oh, you haven't?
I live in America, and I haven't.
No.
Are you on like the eastern U.S. and parts of Canada?
No, so I grew up.
Well,
near
that's
Chicago.
its range.
I've never heard of it
Yeah,
either.
that's the only part of the country I haven't
lived in. The range of the North American house hippo.
Okay, well, I didn't hear of it, and I haven't been there for 10 years.
Yeah, they're rather small. They make their nests out of dryer lint and old socks. Okay, and they sustain themselves on potato chip crumbs and peanut butter on dry toast.
Oh, are they like haggis? Wild haggis?
No, they're not like haggis at all. Yeah, they're rather territorial, and they do sleep quite a lot throughout the day. So they're not.
Do they eat children?
No, they don't. They're rather harmless.
So they're not. They're not
just leave them alone.
horrifying.
Yeah,
they're not like a drop bear.
No,
because I hear drop bears. I hear from trusted friends who wouldn't lie to me that drop bears are a real danger in Australia.
Well, yeah, they'd hit you in the head, wouldn't they?
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
No. That's if you're lucky. If you get knocked out as they impact, but usually you're still conscious as they eat into your face.
Horrifying.
Oh, Spooky has been wonderful, as he always is, and has give us the BBC Spaghetti Harvest in Tanikio.
Nice.
Go on then, play it.
Yeah.
Alright, hold on. Where's my mouse? I've lost my mouse. Okay, I'm going to. Very sorry, but we're going to need to remove you so I can do this because I'm not going to be arsed fucking about with my setup. There we go. Okay, so this, yeah.
Usual. It isn't only in Britain that spring this year has taken everyone by surprise. Here, in the Ticino, on the borders of Switzerland and Italy, the slopes overlooking Lake Lugano have already burst into flower, at least a fortnight earlier than usual. But what, you may ask, has the early and welcome arrival of bees and blossom to do with food? Well, it's simply that the past winter, one of the mildest in living memory, has had its effect in other ways as well. Most important of all, it's resulted in an exceptionally heavy spaghetti crop. The last 2 weeks of March are an anxious time for the spaghetti top prices in world markets, carried out on anything like the...
Okay. No.
What the fuck? People fell for that shit?
Yeah.
Okay, MathPig, I sent you the house hippo there on Discord.
If you don't know how pasta is made, and you never learned it at any point, it's less stupid than thinking the Earth is flat. All you need for that is the knowledge of night sky and a furrowed brow. Okay.
Have you seen the cotton sheep?
Oh, sheep.
No. That's also not so unreasonable, though, right? Like.
Well, at the point at which people heard of this mysterious thing called cotton, the place everywhere in Europe got their fabric from was sheep. The idea of getting your clothing fabric from a plant made absolutely, it was alien.
There was linen and flax.
Apparently not.
Yeah, we had lots of linen.
There was.
Northern Ireland was one of the biggest linen producers in the entire world.
Yeah. Now silk, that was a weird one. They actually thought you rubbed two leaves together.
Silk is another one of those things.
Well, no, but silk was just, when it came to Europe, it was just imported to Europe. You didn't know where it really came from.
Wool, like wool, flax, or hemp, cotton, silk, they're all totally different, right? Yeah. Until you process them and then like hang them up on a thing.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, MathPig there, play the house hippo. If you can get it up.
So this house hippo thing, I've lived on the East Coast all my life. Never heard of it.
Well,
Right.
they're kind
Here's
of
the house
docile. They're
hippo.
quiet.
Thank you.
Right, hold on. We're gonna do this again because it has to be friggin' done.
It's nighttime in a kitchen just like yours. All is quiet. Or is it? The North American house hippo is found throughout.
Oh, that is too fucking
House
cute.
hippos are very timid creatures and are rarely seen, but they will defend their territory if provoked. They come out at night to search for food, water, and materials for their nests. The favorite foods of the house hippo are chips, raisins, and the crumbs from string. The nests have to be very soft and warm. House hippos sleep about 16 hours a day.
That looked really real, but you knew it couldn't be true, didn't you? That's why it's good to...
That's yeah.
There was actually a commercial that we used to get in Canada for about media literacy, and what you see on television isn't always real.
It's not.
It's about critical thinking. And then they actually made a new. They made another one.
You're telling me there isn't
Did it.
Stargate?
And to say like more like to update it with like stuff you see and read on the internet isn't always real. Use critical thinking.
My wee girl
I'm sorry.
is so like, and I'm gonna do a whole daddy thing and all that. And he's all fucking bores the shit out of everybody. Like, but the stuff, even just this weekend, right? Talking and the things that she's picked up on, like I haven't told her about me and Red yet because I don't want her mother knowing, because we have to wait 6 months. And she's already talked to Red, and her mum's like, you can't talk to any girlfriends. And then she's been going, the cupcake knows all about this. It's a whole bullshit. And she knows the way I talk about Red, that she distinguishes between my friends. She was like, do you miss your friends, Daddy? And Red, you know, she makes them wee distinctions. And even when we were watching a video today, it's a music video that lasts 6 hours, right? And it's just background music. I think it's known as hackers working music. It's just music in the background. It's dead on. I had it going at the New Year's Eve party. I have it going all the time just when I'm doing something or whatever. And it's just going. And she says to me, did you see the bear, Daddy? I'm like, there's no fucking bear. What are you talking about? It's a digital screen with a guy with a hood down and there's lights in the background. It's very sort of cyberpunk, steampunk type of thing. And she's like, no, the bear. There's a bear. And I was like, there's no fucking bear. I've watched this. No, she's like, there's a... Sit down and watch. And we sat for 3 minutes. And there's a bear, pops in the window, disappears again. In a split second. Never noticed it. Never seen it. I've watched this video so many goddamn times. Just being aware and stuff. And yeah, I don't know. Proud daddy moment.
By the way,
Have you watched it, or have you existed in its environment?
It's been right there. It's been right there. You know, I've got 4 screens.
That's fair.
So it's...
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm not giving it 100% of my attention, but she's not giving it 100% of her attention. Most of the time while it's on, she's upside down balancing on my feet while we're trying to fly. I'm exercising with her on the sofa like this, just before she said to me about the teddy bear. And it's like a cartoon little teddy bear, just goes, boop, boop, pops in, pops out again.
I wonder what it means.
It's an Easter egg, probably. Always be aware of everything around you. Always question everything. There's a Latin phrase that Red shared with me today, and I can't remember the name of it. I'm boring everybody now.
No, I'm trying to think of. I know any Latin phrases, but I don't, because I never studied Latin.
I know the one from the back of the Pall Mall cigarettes.
Go on.
Vini Vidi Vici. I came, I saw, I conquered.
Right? Tell me, where am I going to find this in the
Mall.
back? I'm smoking Pall Mall Red 100s at the minute. I'm just back from America. These were dead on. They're like £6 a packet. There's no Latin.
But it used to be on them. How'd you like America? You came over just as it got cold.
So let's farm. Tell us, you're echoing a wee bit now, Amber. Tell us about this new channel that you've got going. Have you anything lined up? You said you've got StreamYards down, but you're not sure in the setup and the intro videos and stuff. Where is the new debate channel at?
All right. Well, we have our song picked out. We don't have any graphics yet at all because none of us do graphics. None of us. We have some potential debates lined up that should be coming anytime.
Have you got a name for something? Have you got a slang? Have you got a slogan even? Have you got something that, you know, are we going to call it the Let's Farm Debate channel, or is it the place where Mr. Weasley gets naked, or, you know?
It's called Let's Debate.
Yeah.
That's a great name, can I say?
It goes with my last name really well.
Yeah. Brilliant.
Are you at a biker bar or
something? It that way too.
Is Sammy trying to pick up gay bikers at a biker bar?
Yes.
Thank you. Everybody is so full of banter tonight. You are so energetic and so full of banter.
Sorry, I'm grabbing something. I'm gonna grab it now.
I'm sitting here.
We're waiting. You get.
I was gonna say I was sitting here wishing I could remember more facts.
I know heaps of Latin too, but as soon as you
not that.
mentioned it, I couldn't think of any.
I don't know any Latin.
I'm reading this at the minute. Has anybody heard of this? It is Stone Junction by Jim Dodge. This is the American cover. The UK cover and I think the European cover has 4 aces on the front of it. And it is a story of it's an American-based story, so it does happen in America. In and around, I think it starts in 1970s, 1980s is the start of the story, but it follows one guy's life from the literal moment he's born. The first page is a description of his mother escaping from a nunnery with her just born kid, and it's his entire life from start to finish. His name is Daniel, and yeah, I don't know if anyone's read this before. This is my favorite book of all goddamn time. It's Daniel makes the decision to never go to school, but he does have teachers that it's more of an apprenticeship and then a master sort of relationship. He has one teacher that when he's about 11 or 14, 11, 12, 13, 14, in around this age, he goes off to learn how to meditate. He goes off into the wilderness with Wild Bill to try and get over some trauma and stuff that he's went through, and they focus mainly on his mental progression and how he grows and how he can look upon things. Just recently, where I'm getting at now in the book, he's turning 16, 17 and he can't meditate anymore because he's wanking a lot. He's a teenage boy. He can't get sex out of his mind. So Wild Bill has, like, I wouldn't say he's graduated him, but he's came to the point where there's nothing more I can teach him. So the people that he's working with have sent him to another guy who, I think it's 500 acres of land, and they have a front that they move cattle, but they grow every drug under the sun. And he's now up there and getting high all the time and getting fucked up all the time and getting that out of his system and learning at the same time farming, how to do vegetation and stuff like that. And he's come across a problem where he can only sleep with the same woman once. His dick only gets hard once. Once he has sex with that woman, that's it. He can never get hard ever again, can never get over it.
How old is he at
He's
this
about
point?
17, 18 at the minute.
Whoa.
And the local
He's
people,
hot.
like, he grows, like the farm that they're growing at, right? There is a local, like, I don't want to say witch, what do you call a place where a load of witches hang out, you know? But it's a load of, a coven, right? but it's not a coven, right? But the main woman that runs it sort of describes herself as a witch and walks around naked in the river and shit, and she's like 50 or whatever. And she's all these women that work for her. And they're called commies, don't ask. COMMIES, right? That's how I'm pronouncing it in my head. But they're ladies such and such as commies, and he has slept with them all, but he can only sleep with them once. And he's even tried in a scientific form. He got 3 of them, blindfolded himself, still doesn't work. Just once, only works once. You know, and it's it's a very good book. It goes into lots of stuff, but that's where I'm at the minute. There is future ones where it goes on and teaches him how to make his own money, so they send him away to a guy who knows how to do poker and gambling, so he then learns that, and he gets in trouble because of that, so they then send him to an area where he learns how to do disguises. He's been making fake passports with his mum since he was like fucking 9. You know, it's a very interesting life, and the way it's brought up, and just the way he thinks, you know, the description of his outlook in life is brilliant. And then the fucking last chapter just makes the whole book. And I'm not going to say anything about that, but that's why it's my favorite book ever, because you find out why all of this happens.
What year was he born?
I'm not too sure. I don't think they actually directly mention it, but I'm basing his I think he was born round about the start of the 80s.
Okay. So like phones are around, but not smartphones when he's like a teenager.
Well, maybe a wee bit further back than that then. Maybe 70s.
Yeah.
Yeah. But then in saying that, his main upbringing until he's about, I think, 11 is living out in the middle of nowhere with his mum, and they just sort of tender the land, and when people come through, they look after them, they feed them, they are friendly to them, and then they move on. They sort of work for like, oh, I didn't do that. Who did that? Wesley? Who added Wesley? The computer has not been adding anybody all night, and it adds Wesley.
Wasn't me.
He seems very quiet. Hello, Wesley. How are you?
Hello. Hi, I'm fine.
Are you going to join in the conversation about movies and books, or are you going to proselytize to us?
I had a question for Let's Farm. What are the debates that are coming up on your channel?
Well, I'm a huge movie file.
Well, would you mind if I asked Wesley what his favorite movie is, and if I could put a caveat on it? Don't say to me, God's not dead.
My favorite movie is Gummo.
Gummo? Did you say Gummo?
Yes, Gummo. Yes,
Not a movie.
MMO. It's a brilliant
I've seen that.
film.
That's a horrible choice.
I think we have a huge delay.
I think there is a huge delay between us and Wesley. Where are you based, Wesley?
My top 10, if you include if you put the Harry Potter movies.
No. If you put them in the
into
bin,
one movie, that's in my top 10. Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, Matrix.
have you anything less mainstream?
Yep.
Would you have a movie that you would have watched?
Gummo is about as less mainstream as you're going to get.
That's true. He's right about that. Gummo is about as unmainstream as you can get.
You also said it's a goddamn awful choice.
It's.
I am getting 3 layers of echo from the audio from you.
Could the audience let me know, and can anyone in the panel let me know if there's any audio issues? No?
No, there's just a big delay for Wesley, I think.
Yeah, I think it's just a delay, Wesley.
Wesley might be listening to the stream.
Possible. And your favorite movies? What were some of your favorites?
Well, we've started having a conversation about time travel because that just popped up with me and Tabioca Weasel before we were actually live. We were talking about time travel. Primer was one of our favorite movies based on that. One of my personal favorite movies ever would be the Abyss Special Edition version with the extra minutes, and also Aliens as in Alien 2. They would be very, very high on my list. And I would define a favorite movie as in a movie that you could watch
Aliens,
over.
of course.
I would define a favorite movie as something you could watch over and over and over and over and over and over and over again and never get bored. You know, like there's movies that I could watch, like we've discussed, which is Primer, which is fantastic.
Blade Runner, I watch Blade Runner 5 times a year.
Yeah.
Is Pulp Fiction too mainstream?
Yeah.
No,
it
tries not
doesn't
to.
matter. It still counts.
It does, because it's trying not to be mainstream.
Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
Musicals count.
Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
If you will excuse me, I am going to leave. If you will excuse me, I'm going to leave and see if I can correct the audio delay. And then I'll come back and we'll just talk only about movies. It's one of my favorite subjects.
All going well. We'll see you back soon, Wesley. Right. Let's farm. More focusing then on your... What is your debate coming out? Someone asked you a question before I let Wesley do that.
What was it, Sammy? What was it that you said?
It was me. I was
Okay.
Yeah, no problem. I was just asking, like, what topics and what specific topics, to repeat myself clumsily, are going to be, like, debated.
Well, our first debate that we're trying to hammer out the main topic right now, because the two debaters can't really decide, is going to be atheist versus Christian. And they can't decide what they want to, what exactly they want to argue about. I said, that's a lot of ground to cover. We don't have like 8, 10, 12 hours.
What would that? There's a good question.
Down a little bit.
That is a good question. If it's going to be your first debate ever, and it's going to be a Christian versus an atheist, what would be a poignant topic to talk about?
Ooh.
Is religion harmful?
That's a good start. I'll suggest that to them.
I feel that's
and hopefully we get.
It's been done, but what hasn't been done, honestly?
Well, is religion harmful, right? Me as an atheist would be 50-50 in that. There is benefits.
Why would you be 50-50?
I'm just being arbitrary. You jumped in, you motherfucker. Let me finish, right? I would be 50-50 to the point that there is benefits to religion.
No. The fact that you can get a positive from something doesn't change that it's harmful. There can be a net gain, but that doesn't mean it's not harmful.
Are knives harmful?
Yeah, this could be applied. That's my point, Tabioca Weasel. You know, are goats harmful? You know, there's benefits to goats on both sides. I feel that argument won't go anywhere or achieve anything. Maybe I'm being a dick. I've been told a lot over this last month that nobody outside of Ireland likes Irish people.
I've been hoping to have.
I do.
You're Australian. You know, you have the same problem as me.
Well, I do.
The only place that the Irish can go and get accepted, not only accepted for, but paid to run into people with their elbows, is Australia. You fuckers have been stealing all our Gaelic players and using them for freaking Australian football because you just pay them over there. But I feel that topic would be...
Yeah. Well, maybe you could narrow it down a little bit.
Is belief without evidence harmful?
Yeah, there you go. Well, yeah, you're getting more into the track I
Write
was
these
trying
down
to
just as
go
you're saying
down.
these, Amber. Just as you're saying them, write them down in the private chat there so I can remember the topic we're talking about, please, for me.
Yeah, good point.
Because I like to be
But
pedantic of words.
it is believing something untrue harmful.
Well, they don't believe. You see, that to me makes no sense. Because how can you believe something that's not true? You know, that's an outside. That's an outside.
No.
You don't know it's untrue.
Yeah, you don't know it's untrue. And who defines what's true?
Reality.
The truth.
Evidence.
You might never know whether or not it's true, but truth is defined by whether or not it's true.
Right. Here, okay. I'm going to give you a quick on that topic. Then, on that topic, I'll give you a topic of debate or something to talk about. You can tell me your opinion on that. Is personal testimony justifiable to the person?
No. Let Wesley back in.
To the person.
Yeah.
I mean, to the person themselves, yeah.
Yeah, I'm in Huntington, West Virginia. Hi.
No, but right. Say for talk's sake, Let's Farm had an alien abduction, right? They went and did some nasty things with their probes to poor Let's Farm, right? And then he tells us all this, and we all assume that, you know, man's went through this. We don't think that he's lying. We all know who the person is, and we don't think that they're deliberately telling us or going out of their way. We'll argue with them that someone spiked their drink with LSD before they went to fucking bed, but we'll take them at their word that that person, that Let's Farm, is being genuinely honest. If I then experience something where I've been abducted, and in my circumstance, nobody can say that I was spiked. I was in the house by myself. Let's Farm got abducted by a party. You know, there was lots of people around. There was drugs around. It's definitely possible that this could happen. I now had a very similar experience. Very similar. And I feel the same afterwards. And I experienced it in my house by myself. Now,
MathPig, I'd have to first ask one question of you.
Go on ahead.
Prior to this experience, how much did you have to drink?
Sober, drunk, no drugs, sitting here in the house by himself.
No, I said prior to the experience, how much did you have to drink?
Came home from work, long day.
I didn't
sober.
say you were having alcohol. I said how much did you have to drink?
What, in water?
Any liquids?
Any liquids. Are you worried about me wetting myself while they anally probe me? The point is, I've now had a personal experience that would line up 90% with what Let's Farm's been through, and what you can say to Let's Farm is the reasons why it could have happened. You couldn't say it to me, and the reasons that you can say to me, you can't say to him. So it reinforces
I'd like
each
to
other.
ask, was your experience anything like you were in your house and an entity in the shape of a body of a man or woman walked through a wall into your house, dressed in black from head to toe, and there was this sensation in you of like a shock, like an electric shock, and then it vanished, or it sort of shrank into the floor or between the floor and the wall and vanished, and it would have happened in, you know, maybe 15 seconds of time at most.
As I was saying, I don't think actually Let's Farm has been abducted by aliens and wet himself, and I haven't been abducted with aliens. I went that way to be, you know, this is a hypothetical situation. I haven't had an experience. The point I'm making in the discussion is for the debates and the title of the debate to point out the reason for why I suggested it, as in, does a personal testimony, you know, is it justifiable to that person? And everybody says yes, that, no. But you've other people around you that can reinforce it. You know, where you have other people around you that are going through similar experiences, and trying to find a title of debate on that is what I think would be a good discussion to have. But the debate title is what I'm looking for. I'm just giving context of where I'm thinking to the people around me.
Did you also have an experience where, any of you, where you were sleeping in bed and for about 15 seconds you felt electrified and paralyzed, and a voice that was not you, but spoke inside of you the words, "I will turn and toss you violently like a ball." And then again, many years later, saying, "Don't tell the vision." If anything like that happened to you, I might be able to give you some intelligence about it, but I won't go on and on.
I know a personal.
Time management of your memory.
Sorry, go on ahead, Amber.
I said sleep paralysis and time dissociation in your memory.
I've heard it called sleep paralysis. I disagree with that definition, but if that's what you choose to call it, that's okay, I guess.
I know a person who.
Well, it's an actual medical condition.
Yeah, well, it doesn't come.
The thing that we know happens. It's not just a name we're making.
He didn't
It would
just
have happened
describe sleep
on
paralysis,
October 10 in the year 2005. The entity said, "I will turn and toss you violently like a ball," and paralyzed you if this happened to you for about 15 seconds, and then it vanished. And then on the date March 31st, 2020, again paralyzing, saying like an electric force, forcing your mind to think the words, "Don't tell the vision."
You're making it so specific,
So-
Wesley, that it's very hard.
Yeah.
I mean, that literally sounds
No,
like
it's
sleep.
not, because a symptom of sleep paralysis is auditory hallucinations. So
Well,
you've
on those
perfectly
2 days-
described sleep paralysis.
I know you don't want to hear this, but on those 2 dates, Satan pulled a fire down from heaven, the fire being an electric, and that's how those things were done.
I know a
Fire
guy
being-
who I
hold
would
on,
consider
the
to
fire
be
being an electric.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Like, a fire from heaven, an electric, a lightning bolt. That's a fire from heaven.
So
Okay,
did this
well,
over those
lightning
2
is
days
neither
exactly?
fire nor from heaven, but okay.
Well, heaven being the sky above your head. Let's
Fair
put it
enough.
to you.
Yeah, I was being deliberately difficult on that one. I'll admit.
How do you know Satan did anything?
That was my question.
You don't want to know my answer to that.
We do. That's why we've asked. Two of us have asked now.
I was set before the judgment seat of the Messiah Jesus, and he revealed to me my soul.
Go back. Stop
And it
there.
was dead ashes.
What up?
It was still,
Hold on, Wesley. I think let Amber go.
it was filthy from head to toe. I was
Wesley,
not
please
baptized.
let Amber, or I'll just mute you. I apologize because I think that Amber's going to ask the same question that I have in my head. They're being
The
rude.
problem is I've forgotten what he said word for word, which makes it difficult for me to do.
He said he was dead.
He was
I
dead.
think was going to be your question. Yes.
My
Dead
soul
ashes.
was ashes, and all the ashes were saturated.
No,
with a
where
clear-
was this? You actually, where were you at this point? How were you experiencing this?
I was laying in bed, and my head was lifted up, and I could see my soul.
So you were dreaming.
No, I was at that moment. I was awake, and the scales of my judgment were removed from my eyes, so I could see that I was not the clean, baptized Christian that I said with my mouth. In fact, I was filthy. My soul was dead.
You need a doctor.
Was dead gray ashes, not clean, filthy.
You really
not-
need to see a doctor. You're having recurring bouts of sleep paralysis.
Well, the ashes were oiled with a clear and clean oil, and that is
making not sleep paralysis.
that is the anointing of Jesus, and that is how I know the answers to your
Do
questions.
you know how the things appear in your head, the hallucinations, the dreams, everything you have
I'd like
in
to
terms
ask
of...
Wesley a question.
Yes, I can discern the difference between when it's a
No, that's
vision
not my
from
point.
the Holy Spirit and when it's an electrocution from the lunatic Satan.
I'd like to ask Wesley a question here.
Go for it.
Wesley,
Yeah.
when these events were happening, the house that you were sleeping in, approximately when was it built?
Oh, when it happened to me many years ago, I was living in Chicago, and I was actually in the Cook County Jail when it happened.
Okay, and when was that structure built?
Gosh, probably back in the 40s or the 1930s or the 1950s.
Thank you. That answers my question.
Nine, 1928.
I don't know when the Cook County Jail was built. It's a relatively modern building, but you know, it's little cells where two people live in a 8-foot by 12-foot room with it's a bunk bed. It has a toilet in it. And you know,
Okay, but I'm saying, but
I was in there
modern,
for a misdemeanor for about 14 days.
Okay, hold on. When you say it's a modern building, to me, a modern building would be anything from the 1960s forward.
60s, 70s, probably sometime there.
Okay. I think Tapioca just said it was 1928.
But as
That's
I was
when
laying
it
in
was
bed,
originally built. Whether or not the current construction or the construction in which he was being incarcerated at the time, you know, unclear.
Okay.
As I was laying in bed, my head was lifted up. As I was laying down, my head was lifted up, and I could see my body in the spirit world, and it was not baptized. Though I said with my lips, I'm baptized, Jesus is God, I'm washed in his blood. The fact and the truth is, I was not. My soul was dead ashes of a dead gray color from head to toe. And, you know, and it looked like, you know, like pig fat burnt to a crisp on a fire clinging to barbed wire, potted holes, filthy, just disgusting. And in the bowels, I did see the Holy Spirit of Jesus like a pearl of light about the size of a soccer ball. And I tried to look through it to see if I could see through it. And I could notice that there was a smaller pearl inside of the larger pearl, but it was very large. It was snow white of color, and it was, you know, the size of a volleyball or a soccer ball. And inside of it, like the size of a 16-inch softball. You know, that was in my bowels, below my stomach. And the rest of me was dead ashes, just filthy as could be. And there was no dry place on them. It was all saturated with a clean, clear oil. That's what I did see in me. That's what was revealed to me.
Clean and clear except for the ashes that was saturated.
Yeah, the oil was clear, but the ashes were dead. It wasn't even a pleasant gray. It was like, the only way I could describe it was a dead gray color. Dead gray and dead black.
Do you think you have ever experienced sleep paralysis?
Well, that thing on October 10, 2005, Satan pulled a fire down from heaven upon me, and I was paralyzed. And the only parts of me that
what I mean is, do you think do you think you've ever experienced what is described by medical professionals as sleep paralysis?
Yes, about 4 times.
Right. How do you determine the difference between that and what you experienced on these occasions?
Very carefully.
Well, when it happened, when I would try to lift my head and move my head to look and see what was doing this to me, it was like the very force of gravity prevented me from being able to lift my head. It was
sleep paralysis.
Yeah, I guess if you want to call it that.
I want to know how you know the difference between what medicine would call sleep paralysis and what you experience that you think is different.
Well, I think it's the same thing. Modern carnal medicine calls it sleep paralysis.
But we know we know that that's not supernatural. We know what you're experiencing isn't real.
Well, yeah, but I also know, you know. Okay.
No, we know because we have documented, and we know that the hallucinations that you have in these situations, they are based upon what you know, what you have in your head. Yeah, if you go on.
what you're saying is very, very poignant. You've heard me talk about Raymond before, Amber. Person grew up over here, same sort of experience, a few years older than me. His wife had what you are describing, Wesley, and it was her father or her uncle or whatever. He visited her, as she put it, 3 times, I think it was. She couldn't move, she was pinned down in bed, she had these experiences. He talked to her. Her partner of 15, 20 years, very much like myself, was an actual skeptic and was like Amber. Sleep paralysis, it's this, you need to go get checked, you need to go get this sort of done. She said to him, you'll know it when it happens to you. And then he did have an experience. Now, that's what Amber's pointing out. There's so much, I don't want to say pressure, but you know, we know that these things happen, and he never experienced it until she'd went through it a few times. He fought back, and you know, it's not that it made him think that he was having a spiritual experience, but he's open to the idea of, I was manipulated to a point subconsciously, and now I'm experiencing it myself.
Yeah, it was terrible. I didn't like it one bit. When it attacked me and said, I will turn and toss you violently like a ball, precisely on October 10, 2005, it could only get into me from here, from my shoulders up. From here down, it could not get into me. It could not hold me down. So I assume that when it attacked me, by that time, that pearl of light had restored those ashes into light, and it was unable to touch them.
Again, I'm just going to reinforce what Amber said. You personally,
that's my reasoning.
Well, you personally have said that you have experienced what medical people would say is this is 4 times. Now, have you?
I've heard it called, sleep paralysis.
Right.
Sure.
So your total experience is 4 times. Have you experienced this more than once? Like more than 4 times?
2 times I experienced it when it spoke, and 2 other times I experienced it when it didn't say anything. And one time, completely separate from this, I was in my apartment in West Virginia, and something walked right through the front door to my apartment, past my kitchen door, and it was from head to toe black. And it walked with the stride or the gait of a man. And I felt sort of an electricity, a shock, and it was frightening. It was immediately frightening. And then it sort of vanished into a corner of between the wall and the floor, and it didn't happen for longer than like I said, 10 or 15 seconds.
Have you ever had I don't want to go into your personal details of your life or anything like that, but do you have a wife? Do you have children? Do you have grandchildren?
No, I don't have any wife or children. And you know, I have been with women and been in seriously deep relationships, and some of the women that I was with did become pregnant and insisted on having abortions. Some of the abortions I did not know about. And I say that those children, when they were aborted in the flesh, their spirit was carried into heaven, so that they are, you know, in the eternal Jerusalem, the eternal Israel of Jesus.
What I'm trying to get to,
after I die, we'll meet, and you know, I'll have children then.
What I'm trying to slam down is a differentiation, a difference in what Amber has pointed out as a medical science. It's called this, and you call it this, and you say that all of these experiences that you had are definitely this, and not sleep paralysis. They're definitely.
Well, I hear your definition of it, and I'll agree with you there. You know, we can call it that if you like. That's fine. But I prefer.
No, you can't call it that.
That's
if you don't accept it's not real.
That's what I'm trying to get at. That's what I'm trying. Have you ever had an experience? Right, you've only had 4, and all 4 of them you discern to God. You discern to as a spiritual experience. There's not.
I prefer the poetic. I prefer the poetry of the King James version to describe them over scientific descriptions. But I'll go with
you're missing the point here.
That's fine.
You're missing the point. If you don't accept that this was an hallucination, then you don't accept that it was sleep paralysis. So calling it that is disingenuous at best.
I think what Wesley's trying to say is he accepts the fact that when you say sleep paralysis, he's going to accept it.
Sure.
And whenever he
Sleep
says
paralysis.
experience, he hopes that
So you accept that it wasn't real.
Well, I was asleep. I was paralyzed, so sleep paralysis it is.
No, the point is what you experienced wasn't real.
I was completely awake when it happened, you know.
Right. I'll ask a
Were
question
you,
now. This
though?
is what I was hitting home with. The reason I asked about a partner, the reason I asked about children is because these connections are very emotionally driven. These connections are very strong. Like, you know, as a father with a daughter or a person or a mother or a cousin, you know, there's a difference between loving your cousin and loving your daughter. You know, there's a connection there that you just can't help. And it's emotionally driven and it's also biologically based. Have you ever had an experience like that that's not religion, where you felt these things, a moment of clarity, a moment of this, that, and the other, that's based in what you know is the real world? Like, that's why, again, I used partner or children, because you know these are real. You know they're not a godlike experience, but you've still felt that love, that emotion, that rush of something.
A little bit of fear, you know, a little bit afraid of it. And like I was ensnared or imprisoned or raped and could not do anything to stop it.
The R word's very extreme and takes it to another level of what you went through. That on its own.
It put its, whatever it spoke, it put it inside of my head, the words, "I will turn and toss you violently like a ball." And I had no defense against it.
But that's
so that's a form of rape.
But that's what you went through in the experience. What we're trying to do is take you and make you look outside of the experience and say, this experience, regardless of what happened in it, caused me to feel and experience this emotionally and spiritually. Okay? And what I'm trying to say is, have you ever had anything in the real world, which you would agree that's real, that has still caused
some sort of an experience in life where things like that were going on that would have set off such a
people go to giant churches,
catastrophe.
right? Yeah, people go to giant churches and they're all in this.
No, I had very loving and very nurturing parents. I had good relationships with women, and you know, was pretty much a regular person. Although I was for many years a very serious drug addict. Now, I am not one now and haven't touched drugs in the last 12 years. But before that, I was very heavily into drugs. And it was...
Which drugs?
Totally. I smoked crack cocaine, the devil's dick.
Oh. The correlation that I was going with was, I'm sure that you've seen and I'm sure that you've heard atheists and skeptics say to people who go to these big, giant, massive churches with all this music going on, and they're sitting there singing and they feel an emotional, a spiritual thing where God comes and talks to them. And if you go and talk to them,
I think every one of those big churches is nothing but phony and fraud. Every one of them on earth.
Yes,
they're doing a physical workout and getting an elation from the same thing as running on a treadmill or going out and jogging. Sure, you feel a little bit better. They're getting their blood pressure worked up a little bit.
It goes even further than that, Wesley.
They're bullshit.
It goes even further than that. I'm glad that we can agree on that particular point, that the big, massive churches and stuff like that, they're, you know, it's all about getting the energy run up and your body running and stuff like that, and you're with a crowd, and on that point we can agree. But it does take it a wee bit further.
Same thing at a soccer match when everyone's cheering for the team.
Yeah, if you could just let me get the point out, right?
MathPig.
No, you shut up too. You shut up too.
But they're cheering.
Everybody shut up.
So,
right, I'm going to lose my point if I don't say it.
Same thing. It's a sport to them.
The point I'm trying to make is these people are experiencing an emotional and spiritual thing, very similar, if not the exact same thing as what you think you went through. The only difference is You disagree with the reasons behind it, and we disagree with your reasons behind yours. Are you open to that?
I'll shine your shoes for you if you.
I don't want you to shine my shoes. I want you to be open to the idea that you disagree with what they're going through and say it's fake because of them reasons, because big church and stuff. And we say that what you went through is not necessarily fake, but you went through what you did because of sleep paralysis.
Well, yeah, as I said, I don't believe any of the churches that claim to be Jesus worshipers in this day. I don't believe even one of them really believes that Jesus is God. Not even one.
Would anybody else like to make a point? Is there even anyone else here but me and Wesley?
I'm here.
Are you there, Sydney?
Fascinated.
Okay, I have something. Have you considered, just to prove it to you,
Time will
maybe
tell
seeing...
time will tell if I'm right or wrong about this. And
You're
the
wrong
way it
about
will
it.
tell.
Time is
The
easy.
way it will tell.
And time, you're wrong about
is
it.
A lot of people that are saying Jesus is God, I'm washed in his blood, I just say his name and that means I believe he is God. Those same people are going to go get the Omni bar on their wrist and Jesus is going to kill them in the street.
See, there's an awful lot of issues I have with all these wordages.
Those people worship money, not Jesus. Those people want their 32,523 cryptocurrency dollars for being branded like a cow with a barcode on their wrist or forehead.
That was an
And they're going to say,
amount.
Jesus is God. This money's a blessing from Jesus. Hallelujah, Jesus. And then Jesus is going to say, I do not know you. And he's going to drop them dead worldwide.
Okay, I'm going to just say maybe two things. So you know what Jesus is going to say, so you can speak for God. And Headless Chicken had a question he would like to ask, or was trying to say something, so I'd like to give it to Headless Chicken. But you
Hey, Headless Chicken, I'm bruised corn.
No, but you telling me that you know what Jesus is going to say when these things happen means to me that you know the mind of God. And that's a big statement. But go on ahead with your questions, Headless.
I would that I did. I tell you what, that's a jump off a diving board into an empty pool.
Chicken, go for it. Buck.
It's okay. I'm gonna hold my questions. It's all right. You can carry on.
No,
Have
don't
you... is my audio okay?
It's not great, Sammy, but we can understand you when you talk, and if you mute while you're waiting, everything's good.
Okay. Have you ever sought any sort of therapy or counseling in regards to this, or have you just straight up always trusted your own interpretation?
Concerning the drug addiction? Concerning...
concerning your sleep paralysis experiences.
No, I looked into the King James Version of the Bible and found what satisfied my heart as to what was going on. And I was comforted in knowing that it was a very frightening, terrible thing that happened. But it was very comforting to at least have an intelligence about it that was written.
You have no way of confirming it.
But
can you see how that's an issue for us?
Sure. I understand. I do. That's why I don't want to. Listen. I don't. Every word I speak isn't from Jesus. I speak my own brutish mind, and I don't want to confuse you.
More to the point, though, it's an issue for you. Like you haven't even, you haven't attempted to falsify it for yourself. Like, doesn't the Bible say to test the truth and test God? And and you've
I
just
think
straight
it's
up
more like he's
accepted
gonna
whatever
test
you.
me. It's more that he'll test me than I'm going to test him. You know.
Yeah, but that doesn't
But
answer the question.
that's what happened to me. My soul was not baptized. I had been dunked in the water in the Baptist Apostolic Church, and I, sang the Hallelujah choruses, and I, went to the church and read the Bible and said Jesus is God. And,
I have a
but
question.
the fact is, I was dead ashes.
Right, I have a question. Do you think brains are perfect? Do you think your memory is perfect? Do you think your cognition is perfect?
No, not in any way is my brain.
Do you think drugs can permanently change how your brain functions?
It pretty much darn near destroyed my brain.
Do you think your brain is capable of giving you an accurate reflection of the world?
I'm a brute. I am a feeble. I'm dim-witted.
So what do you think what you experienced was real?
Well, yeah, I felt a presence like I was being shocked. And a voice spoke in my head the words, "I will turn and toss you violently."
Yes. Why do you
like
think that
a
was
ball.
real and not your brain creating it?
And it happened to me on October 10 in the year 2005.
But why do you think it was real? Why do you think it wasn't an auditory hallucination?
What
Why
makes
do you think
it different
your
to you?
brain creating that?
And it could not touch the Holy Spirit of Jesus in my
Okay,
bowels.
Wesley, I'm going to interrupt, and I'm just going to be a straight up Irish asshole, and I'm going to go straight to the point. Amber is asking you flat out, how do you know what you went through is what you describe it as, or what the King James described it as, and not sleep paralysis? What to you makes it different? What to you makes it spiritual? What to you means that it comes from God?
I think we're splitting hairs there. I'm just telling you what happened to me.
Yes.
Now, you want to.
But
That's
like-
what happened to me.
I could talk to you about going to a Metallica concert and explain to you how fantastic it is because I'm at the front and I'm there in the pit, and I bring Amber with me, and Amber describes the exact same thing, but Amber's emotional response to that is complete bullshit. And it's like, I can't wait to get the fuck out of here. Two different feelings of the exact same fact, right? We're telling you that the fact is it's sleep paralysis, and you're telling us it's not. So what we're asking you is to.
No, I'm agreeing with you. Okay,
Yeah.
sleep paralysis. I was paralyzed. Yeah, I'll say
but
it was
what
sleep
makes?
paralysis. Sure.
How do you know?
No. For you to accept that it's sleep paralysis, you also have to accept. You also have to accept it wasn't real.
No, he doesn't.
To call it sleep paralysis, you have to accept that it was purely a creation of your brain, that it was not supernatural, that there was that's what I'm saying. When I keep saying you can't call it sleep paralysis and then say you think it really happened.
Well, I'm just saying what happened to me. And if it happened to you and those same words were in your head at that same time, then, that kind of suggests that there's a little bit more to discuss about it.
No, I'm not saying it's not, but you can't call it sleep paralysis. You are explicitly claiming it's not sleep paralysis.
Well, I don't understand. I'm agreeing with you that it's sleep paralysis, and now you're saying
No. Can I? Hold on. I think I see the problem. What you're agreeing is when you say I agree that it was sleep paralysis. What you're agreeing is right, please. What you're agreeing is what you experienced. A part of it, you were paralyzed while you were sleeping. That's not what Amber is saying. That a part of your experience was you paralyzed while you're sleeping. What Amber is saying is sleep paralysis is this medical diagnosis. You cannot say it is sleep paralysis and then at the same time say you had a spiritual experience. You can say your spiritual experience included you being paralyzed while asleep, but you can't, and it's not that you can't, but when Amber says sleep paralysis, they mean a medical term.
Okay.
I think that's the wall we're hitting here. And what I think Amber is trying to ask you, and what I have directly asked you a couple of times, is what makes you believe? What is different for you from your experience that you know this is definitely not your brain medical disorder that is referred to as sleep paralysis? This is the opposite side, and it's Jesus, God, Yahweh, whatever the fuck you want to call it. How do you know that it's that?
Well, because I did read the words, the Lord shall turn and toss you violently like a ball into a large country. There thou shalt die. There the chariots of thy glory shall be the shame of the Lord's house. I read that in Isaiah 22, and I recognized that the voice that was in my head perverted, changed, added to a little bit here, took a little bit away there, changed, pronouns, those words in my head. That's why I say it was the voice of the devil in my mind, because I read something similar to those words in the Bible that had been changed in my head by that electricity bolt or that fire.
Okay. Now, can I ask on this, right? You read this, you've read a particular phrase in Isaiah, right? Whatever.
Yeah, it was like similar
if I
to
can
the
just,
word.
Right.
I and something that could get into my head and do that, it ain't a good spirit.
You created it.
Let me get right. So you read this thing, okay? So you read this thing. Have you ever heard of telephone Chinese whispers, where people say things and move it on and stuff like that? You've heard of the idea that our subconscious gives us dreams to help us organize things. Are you open to these ideas?
I don't think you want to hear what my take on the norm.
Yes or no was all I'm asking. Yes or no.
Yes, I've heard of those things. Of course, I've heard of those.
Okay, perfectly right. So you're open to the idea that in science these things can be proven. So, moving forward then, this information is now in your brain, and your subconscious, which is, part of you, built by you, all of you biologically, not spiritually, took this information, and then you went through this experience. And the whole idea of sleep paralysis is that not that you make a conscious decision to pin yourself down, it's an unconscious decision. It's a medical thing. It's something that you go through. And having this information already as a foundation in your brain, you changed it. As Amber screamed with exaltation, you created it yourself. Are you open to the possibility of that?
Yeah, surely.
Now, why do you then throw that out the window? And don't do it again. I asked you this a couple of times, and each time you describe to me your experience, not your feelings of it. Someone screaming at you during an experience to believe it isn't reason to believe it. I want to know what you feel and how you know that this is real. Not over what the experience told you to believe. Sleep paralysis will tell you to believe it as well. Sleep paralysis will do the exact same. Sleep paralysis will tell you it's real and tell you you're going through it.
I have to head out.
I'm not intelligent or witty enough to answer that question. I'm sorry.
You don't need to be intelligent.
I have to head out. I'll see everybody later.
Love, love, love. Thank you for coming.
Bye.
Yep.
Later, Weasel.
My wee girl at 3 and 4 could tell me how she feels about what just happened without describing what just happened. I don't want to know the details of what you went through. I want to know how it made you feel. How do you personally know that this is a spiritual experience rather than sleep paralysis? What to you makes the distinction? And not the sleep paralysis telling you that it's real or what you went through, because it's the same either way. How do you know that it feels? Like, did you get a feeling in your brain? Did you get a tightness in your chest? What? How do you know that this is God and not a medical thing?
Well, it wasn't God. It was the devil, and it spoke inside of my head and perverted the words of Jesus, God, and it paralyzed me, and it spoke words, but it was never words in my ear. It was like directly into my head, like as though my head was a carbon filament in a TV tube, and I was getting the transmissions from CBS down in New York. You know, a lightning bolt was put into my head, or a fire, and it spoke those words. And I suppose because it spoke words so loudly inside of my head, that's why I say it was a spiritual thing. But not really a spiritual as much as an anti-spiritual thing.
I understand that. A being from the other side, an entity of, non-corporeal.
Maybe I just say it was a spirit because I'm kind of stupid, and I don't have the intelligence.
I don't know. I'm going to then ask the other people in the panel if I am describing this incorrectly, but what I keep getting from you is you telling me that the thing told you it was real, and not you discerning the difference. I think Nerdy has done a wonderful description in this side chat. Sleep paralysis always smells of cucumber, but this time it smelled of cheese, so you knew it was divine. So you had the same experience and it smelled of cucumber. This time you went through it and it now smelled of cheese. We know it's God. That's a different thing. But what you're describing can literally be written down as sleep paralysis. And it's only your personal interpretation that makes it spiritual.
Then on March 31st, it could not get into me in 2020, but it said, don't tell the vision.
Again,
and
it said this.
No,
Wesley, you're missing a point. It said this. It told me to believe this.
And it vomited a frog. It vomited a head of a frog on everybody that it said it to. A frog with 2 fangs and a barcode on its head. Everyone that thing had said, don't tell the vision to, it vomited a frog on it. So I saw the frog.
I want to know. I don't care what it's called.
It had 2 little blind eyes. I saw it with my eye.
But the whole idea of what I'm trying to get to you, Wesley, is I don't care of the actual experience itself. The experience itself, the details of it, the ones, the twos, the how you were doing, the what you were dressed, none of that matters to me, right? What I'm trying to get past is, how do you know? I don't care what it's called. How do you know that it was God? Are you making, is it an internal thing? Is there something that happened that's different to what's being described as sleep paralysis? Like, what made it personal to you?
Well, the good part of it is that it couldn't touch me where I was clean. And so
again, you're describing
when
the
it said, don't tell the vision, it couldn't touch me at all. Couldn't even paralyze.
I don't know. Can someone translate for me? Am I having trouble? Am I doing this wrong? Can we have a translator?
I was thinking about going a different way.
I don't care. I don't care. Go a different way. Go. I don't feel that I'm explaining myself correctly, Wesley. I think.
No, I think we're
sure.
going
I just know. I can't tell you. You know, I know because of the word in the Bible.
That's all I wanted you to say. I know because I know. That's it. That's a short version of basically what I wanted you to say.
I said I know because of the words in the Bible that Jesus wrote. That's how
I win. I win. Yay. Go.
Okay. I didn't know we were playing the sport. I'm glad you won. Good. I'm glad somebody won. It'd be better you than me.
How long have you believed that God exists?
I can't remember that I never did believe that Jesus is God, but I don't believe that there's been a day in my life that I've been a good man. I believe I've been an evil man all my life.
Right, that doesn't matter. See, that didn't answer my question. But you believe that God exists for as long as you can remember.
Yeah.
And do you think that God can get pissed off?
Yeah, really pissed off.
Do you think that God would be pissed off if you were spreading lies about him?
Yeah. The way he gets pissed off is that when I do bad, a little piece of my soul turned into a piece of ass.
Just wait. Do you think he would be pissed off that you lie if you lied about Satan?
Yeah.
Right. When we have a phenomenon that we understand and that we know is a manifestation of our brain function, why does it not bother you to be so willing to represent that as something you can't be certain it is?
Well, that thing that attacked me, it didn't come from my brain. It went into it, and it wasn't any control of mine, and it was smarter than I am.
No, you're misunderstanding. That's how these hallucinations come during sleep paralysis. That's how you experience them.
Well,
right?
That's the way you
They're
put it.
still manifestations of your brain. Say again?
I can understand how you'd feel that way. Did that happen to you?
It's been documented repeatedly.
Well, this is, yeah, Amber's saying the same thing to you, man. What you have went through, nearly word for word, has been written down and found a scientific reason, and the scientific reason is sleep paralysis. How and why, and what you keep saying is the diagnosis. What you keep saying, the reason that it's spiritual, is literally the things that the reasons for sleep paralysis.
I don't know the reasons of it. I don't know the reasons of it in any way. It just happened, out of like in the blink of an eye, out of the dark night. Like I didn't have any warning that it was going to happen. Surprise. And then, I'm plastered against the bed, unable to move. And, it lasted about 15 seconds. And it was terrible. I didn't like it. It's like I was being electrocuted.
I do have a question now I'd like to ask of Wesley. Wesley, you said this experience happened when you were detained?
One time I was in Cook County Jail for 14 days for a trespassing misdemeanor. Okay. And the other time I was in my apartment in West Virginia in a town called Wayne.
All right. So in both cases, you were alone when you were sleeping?
In the first time, there was a guy in another jail. My cellie was in the bunk down below me.
Okay. And
wait. Excuse me. The first time it happened, when I saw my soul, I was in jail. When the electricity hit me, I was in a hospital bed. And after it happened, I got up out of the bed and I asked the nurses, I kind of spoke about it to the nurses. And the two nurses were Filipino. And they started saying, "Oh, great intelligence, great intelligence." And that's the only thing that they said about it. Yeah, because I was in the hospital when the voice got into my head and electrocuted me. When it said, "I will turn and toss you about like a ball." I was in a hospital. And
how do you know you weren't talking about me?
And then when I got up, I walked outside of my hospital room and two nurses were there and they were going, "Great intelligence, great intelligence." And they wouldn't say anything more about it. Like, how did they? I hadn't even said anything to them until they said that first. So maybe it happened to them while they were wide awake. I don't know. They wouldn't say anything more about it.
How do you know they weren't talking about Robbie?
That's just one of those little social norms you got to figure out,
I think it's more likely that it was just part of your hallucination. Nobody said anything to you.
I didn't perceive that they were going to, they said great intelligence, and they were like Filipino, two women, nurses. And it didn't make sense what they were saying to me. Like, okay, maybe it happened to you too, maybe it didn't. They wouldn't
my mother
about it when it wasn't any other way. That's how they.
It was during the birth of my brother. My mother died for a wee period. maybe 60 or 70 seconds or whatever it was. And she could come back, and she is determined to this day that she told the doctor, because she felt herself come out of the body, she seen them. She says that she witnessed the doctor slapping her face and stuff like this and all the rest to try and wake her up and all that. You know, I don't know these things, but I guarantee you that the doctor told her what happened. I guarantee you that she was probably on drugs at the time and taking this, that, and the other, and has created this situation. I don't deny what my mother went through. I don't say that she's a liar. But I could medically describe what my mother has went through, and I would lean more on that than I would in her spiritual experience. Even though I would not dismiss what my mother went through. She had a full-blown NDE. Isn't that what they're called? Near-death experience, yeah. What the fuck? I didn't know where, Sammy.
Kids.
It was just so perfect, right? It's so perfect. My mother will also tell you that when she was younger and she was in hospital due to some silly thing or whatever it was, she was in hospital for 4 days, and the woman beside her died the morning she was there. That woman's spirit came and visited her for 2 days straight, up until she told someone that this lady was coming and visiting her, and then she'd never come back again. And a day and a half later, whatever, my mother left. You know, I grew up listening to all these stories. I also grew up being told to think and be open to the possibility. If I can't find a valid reason to show the difference between a spiritual experience and a scientific experience, I'm not going to say that I will full-heartedly say that this is true. I am always going to be open to that. But if I cannot
I have a theory about it. So I'm open to conjecture.
You have a hypothesis. You have a hypothesis.
My theory is
Wesley, it's called a hypothesis.
My hypothesis is that thing that electrocuted and transmitted words into my mind was the devil. And in my rudimentary words, my brutish words, I hypothesize that devil used that same manner, that same thing upon Muhammad, and gave Muhammad the words Muhammad wrote the Quran. And he gave him all the words that Muhammad wrote in the Quran. Not all of them, but many of them were given to him that way.
Why
and
specifically?
The words that Buddha wrote in the book of the Buddha text, and Vishnu in the Vishnu text, and Krishna in the Krishna text, were put into their heads, forced into their minds the same way, and they thought it was God, and they wrote the lies.
Love you, Amber. Oh, love you, Amber.
That's my hypothesis.
So your hypothesis is that every religion that's out there is a slight twist of Christianity and was implanted upon humans' minds by the devil.
Well, that Muhammad got those words, believed it was God, and started writing the verses down. It was a little bit.
Is it just Islam, or is it all other religions?
My hypothesis is that it's all religions. That only the Bible, Jesus appeared to those men and gave them the words to write, and they could see Jesus with olive dark skin and black hair and white robes speaking to them normally like a person speaks. And that's how they call it. The inspired word was written down, that Jesus appeared to everybody that wrote the chapters in the books of the Bible that way, and gave them the Bible in that way. But Satan didn't do that. Satan electrocuted, forced, raped the minds, and didn't say his name, and gave him lies, and they wrote those words down to all those other false texts. And my hypothesis is that there comes a day that Jesus is going to put me at Mecca, and I'm going to speak for him, and he's going to turn all of those books into dust or erase the words from their pages and cut all their toy dolls in half. and he's going to turn Mecca into dust, and that 10,000 Taliban Muslims are going to fall dead at my feet, and I'm going to walk away unharmed with the children.
Again, you keep saying
That's
Muslims
my
and
hypothesis.
Islam. You're very, I don't know, maybe it's the repetitive nature of it, but I don't know.
And that on that day, everyone that takes the 32,523 crypto dollars to be branded with a UPC barcode called Omni, on that day, Jesus is going to say, I do not know you, and I gave you all the time you needed, and you didn't use it, and he's going to take that pearl of light out of their bellies, and they're going to fall dead on the ground.
How many crypto dollars, Wesley?
I'm guessing 32,523, but I could be wrong.
How did you derive at this number?
I was homeless living in a tent by a river called the Ohio River, and something, a voice sounding that sounded exactly let's go back to the movies now. Sounded exactly like Sam Rockwell's voice. You know who Sam Rockwell is? Ensign 37 in Galaxy Quest.
Yes.
The voice sounding like Sam Rockwell.
Even you can see the ridiculous. Even you can see how ridiculous it is. You can't help but laugh.
Said 32,523 for the Omni. And a voice, I think it was a voice that sounded like Kirsten Dunst had said something that gave me the idea that the Omni would be the name of the mark of the beast. And that was outside of my body. I was sleeping in a tent by the Ohio River, and I heard that. And that's the way. If you want to say that's schizophrenia, that's okay with me, because I would agree with you 100% about that. And it bothers me that whatever it was, it didn't say Jesus' name. So I don't know exactly. I'm a little confounded there about what that really is. So that's where I come up with that number. I heard a voice say that number.
Wesley, what
like
social
Sam
media
Rockwell.
what social media do you use, Wesley?
Huh?
What social media do you use? Do you use Twitter?
Well, I'm on Facebook and I use YouTube mostly. I get that news page where there's 50 different.
You must have an
articles.
email address that you sometimes check. Yes. You have an email address that you would check. Yes.
Sure. Yeah. offindie@gmail.com.
Would you mind putting it in the private chat? Just type it in the private chat so I have it.
Okay.
I'm getting it's getting a little late. We have a few other people streaming and stuff like that. And to be desperately honest, I want to go showing a wee bit of support for Richard. I don't like what's been happening to him lately. Jay Bundy has been a fucking asshole, and I don't mind saying that publicly. I don't like the guy. Talked over me every single fucking time I'm on the channel, and I overtalk people, and if he can overtalk me, that's something. Fuck. So I want to go over to Rages. If any of the mods are out there, Maya or Nerdy, if you could pop, or even Amber, if you're still there, could anyone pop Rages link for their live stream over there? I don't know if it's going to be open room or not or anything like that there, but I'd like to go support Richard. I disagree with Richard as much as I disagree with Wesley. I think I don't think Richard's not genuine. What's the word for not genuine? Disingenuous. I don't think Richard is being disingenuous in anything that he says. And
if it's any help to you to lighten the mood, the last time I saw Jesus Christ, he was wearing a Beatles
lighten the mood. No, that'll not lighten.
I was in a pub at Wrigley Field having a beer and a pizza, drawing caricatures, and he was standing behind me wearing a Beatles wig, going like this.
I'm going to work around the room. Going to give everyone a shout out. Going to let everyone have their time and stuff if I can. First and foremost, I appreciate the effort that you've put in tonight, Wesley. I'm sure you know of your own reputation precedes you, and I think you've represented yourself tonight, being open deliberately saying you won't talk about religion and when we were talking about movies, and it was us that brought it up, so I appreciate, you know, that.
Go Gummo. Go see, if you want to see a quirky movie, see Gummo. I thought it was brilliant. It can be unsettling, but I thought it really captured what life is really like, and it did so in an artful manner. What life in the kind of places where I live,
Cool.
you know, what life is like.
Yeah, I appreciate that, man. I think this has been a productive conversation with yourself tonight, and a lot of times you come in and you don't give a shit. Like, you just keep talking no matter what the fuck anyone's saying, ordering food. You know, I appreciate from what I've interacted with you as tonight. Headless Chicken, you slippery motherfucker that never got the link but still knows the link. Have you anything you'd like to say?
No, it's okay.
Come on, say something.
Oh, no. I'm not going to mention your prolapse anus.
You leave my prolapsed anus out of this, all right? I want to thank everybody for coming. I want to thank Maya, Arctic Timberwolf, Nancy, Paul, Sandy, Nerdy, everybody that's come by tonight. I really appreciate the audience. Nice mixture of our audience again tonight. I really appreciate people from all sides and all beliefs coming in. And always welcome. Tuesday we'll have Richard. We'll be doing the usual revelations. I'll be screaming alien overlords, disagreeing with everything he says, and coming up with my own religion. And links in the chat. Thank you, Sandy. Pop over to Rages. Show Richard some support. You know, if anything, just be honest. You know, people are saying he's a liar. People are saying he's false representing. And I don't believe that that's true. You know, I don't like when people pick on people I care about, regardless of what they believe. You know, be honest. Always speak the truth. Think for yourselves. Check out Sleep Paralysis Wesley. Look it up.
Okay.
And don't forget to leave out some potato chips and some peanut butter on
hippos.
toast for the house hippos.
Don't forget about the happy house hippos. Love yous, everybody. And yeah, think for yourselves, people.
I love you too.
See yous on Tuesday.
Eager to get to know you. Oh.